There are more to Space Marines than just those vanilla-flavored ones in the Standard Codex, and we're going to do the same thing we did the other day, where we are going to see how we can twist these lists using some extra tools, though of course not all of the chapters will be featured because most of them don't really have anything that changes the formula we already established. We do see the Land Raiders here because that is in fact an adjustment that I need to make to the video I did yesterday, in that I messed up. You can get way fewer models in a Space Marine army if you take one Terminator Captain, one Fire Strike Servo Turret, 3 Land Raiders, 3 Land Raider Redeemers, and 1 Land Raider Crusader for a very small 9 models. This is, of course, a ridiculous list. There is quite a lot of armored might, that's to be certain, a huge amount of wounds, and, I mean, with the las cannons, this is probably the only list we've made that has actual anti-tank damage. And you could even play some sort of funny version of that cup game, you know, where you hide something under the cups and then shift them around. Just put the Terminator Captain in one of these Land Raiders and don't tell your opponent which one he's in, and then it's kind of up to them to figure it out. He is, of course, the only real person here, unless you count that Fire Strike Servo Turret, but, I mean, that Tech Marine's basically wired into that thing anyways. I don't think he deserves rights. This is, of course, 9 models for a particularly... $817 approximately. Just because of, a couple, that was just what I put here. Approximately $817, before taxes, before shipping, things like that. This is, of course, would be a hilarious list to fight, and I'm sure that someone like Tyranids, who struggle to have more than Strength 12, would not enjoy it. But this would also be a very strange army to play because you would have basically, no models on the table. But unlike Knights, you would not have that much bulk on the table, funnily enough, because Land Raiders are certainly big vehicles, don't get me wrong, but they are not as enormous as Knights, nor do they have the same wound count as Knights, despite sharing the same toughness. Though, I would like to see this list on the table someday, mainly just because Land Raiders are cool, and seeing 7 of them on the same table just sounds like a sight to behold. Now, we're going to cover the Dark Angels and the Ultramarines. The Ultramarines are really the only thing from the chapter specifics that is worth noting. He shares the same points cost with the Lion, so you can build this list for either faction. And I believe this is the smallest list in this video that we are covering today. It is just the Rabute or the Lion, and then you get 3 Land Raider Redeemers and 3 Land Raiders, and then 1 Dreadnought. You might actually be able to eke out a few less models if you brought Storm Ravens. I'm not realizing that, but I think it would be only maybe 1 or 2 less models. This would be $753, which isn't what I would call, amazing, but I suppose that's what you get when you only buy the single most expensive kits that Space Marines have to offer. Though you do get that cool Dreadnought, and everyone likes Dreadnoughts. This would be a very strange list. Of course, the Primarchs, I don't believe, can fit inside those Land Raiders, so it really just would be one dude sort of walking around as he has 6 ginormous tanks following him around, which I suppose is rather 40k in its imagery. It certainly would be a strange list to fight against or to play, that's for certain. Not too dissimilar from the last one he covered, but even less firepower on the table. Though, having a Primarch on the table is certainly a benefit, I would say. With your Oath of Moments from Rabute or the Melee Might of the Lion, you would actually have quite a bit of output damage with your Land Raiders and your singular Dreadnought, who would no doubt be lagging behind the entire army because of how slow those poor box knots are. But again, this is just another sort of silly list. It's not too dissimilar to the Space Marines, but I kind of just wanted to get all of the Space Marines out of the way in the first 2 videos so we can move on to, maybe a couple Xenos races per video, a couple Imperial factions per video, like maybe Sister and Guard in one video. We do have one on the opposite end of the spectrum, and that's the Space Wolves. This is 1995 points for the largest amount of models I believe you can squeeze into one Space Marine army, excluding agents. So you have, of course, a Blade Guard Ancient, everyone's favorite dirt cheap character to lead an army. Then you have 3 Cyber Wolves, somehow even cheaper than the Blade Guard Ancient, and sharing shockingly similar melee damage for half the cost. And then in terms of battle line, you just take those young and rambunctious space wolves known as the Blood Claws, and you bring them in their maxed unit size of 15, and you just bring that 6 times, and then you'll have, a huge horde of Space Marines. And then to top off, we have our friends the Reavers again, just 3 units of 10 of them. And then to finish off the list, we have 3 units of Fenrisian Wolves. This comes out to a whopping 154 models for $905. This would be quite an imposing list to face, I'm sure, for a lot of armies, just because there would be so many Space Marines to chew through. And the Wolves actually give you a little bit of battle line presence, or sort of battlefield presence turn 1 because of their advance and charge and scouts. Though they, of course, won't be doing much, and I believe the highest strength you can get in this army is strength 9 with a single Meltagun in the Blood Claws unit. So they certainly wouldn't be dragging down tanks, but hey, if you put enough Space Marines in front of something, they can't kill all of them. So that is certainly a fun way to look at Space Marines, and honestly I would say this isn't terribly dissimilar to how the Space Wolves often do fight with their Blood Claws, just sending them off into battle so that they can learn the ways of war in more than just a screaming horde and see how that can fall short, because God forbid this army runs into something like an Orc rocket launcher or even a plasma cannon, which would tear so many Space Marines away every turn. It would honestly be comical how quickly this list would crumple against something like a Redemptor Dreadnought. Regardless, we are going to cover the last of the Divergent chapters that I'm actually covering, as the Blood Angels, Black Templars don't really have anything worth noting, as they can take everything vanilla Space Marines can. So we have the Few Knights. This is the Grey Knights, of course. You take 1 Grandmaster and 1 Grandmaster in Nemesis Dread Knight armor, and then in terms of the other units, you just bring 3 Land Raider Redeemers and 3 Storm Ravens for a absolutely minimal 8 models. The Grandmaster doesn't have an official, or his model isn't on sale, so I just took the price of the Brother Captain. That's why the number's a little weird here. But for 220, why can't I speak? What's wrong with me? $822.75. You would get 8 models with a highest strength of, 14 if you bring the hammer on the Dread Knight? This would, of course, be a completely ridiculous list that, again, serves almost no purpose, but is, again, very funny. And remember, there's rule of cool, and then there's rule of funny, and you should always follow the rule of funny. Yes, you should charge your guardsmen into that squad of Space Marine Terminators. They will not die. They will chip a wound off the Space Marines, and the Space Marines will whiff all of their attacks. That is a true story, and this is 100% Imperial fact. Imperial Guards can 1v1 Space Marines in melee, I assure you, and if your Imperial Guard get absolutely flattened, I am not liable. Regardless, this was just to round out the Space Marines and make an addendum for the mistake I made, but the next few videos will be more varied because we'll be covering different races. I've been Spoons Rattling. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.